is to pour the entire concrete footing in one day. By starting the pour at the far end of the foundation and working around both sides at once, we can get all the concrete into our formwork without any of the concrete setting up before we're complete. This is an essential part of creating a strong foundation.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
In this video series, I take you through the process of how we created this backyard art studio. It features 3 large windows and glass doors to allow natural light to fill the interior. It also includes an outdoor covered awning space with a hardwood batten privacy screen. We chose to use passive house design systems in the construction to make the most of the year-round weather conditions. In the last episode, we demolished the concrete slab of the old shed we're replacing and used the debris as a foundation to create an access path for our tools and materials throughout this project. We also completed the formwork for the concrete footing that'll be the foundation of our structure. We're going to be pouring the concrete for our footing today. Yesterday I almost got the whole form finished. We just have to throw our steel in. I'm going to cut a couple extra blocks like this to help keep our formwork parallel as we fill it out with concrete. Finished off this ramp yesterday. This is so we can get the concrete to the other side. This just lifts up out of our way when we need it, otherwise it'll stay in place. And we installed our electric conduit so this can come up through our foundation and through the slab. We'll be mixing this pile of pre-mixed gravel and sand with our Portland cement, create our concrete for this footing. One of the key elements for our foundation is the steel reinforcement that sits inside the concrete and gives it tensile strength. I use purpose-designed plastic shoes to lay the mesh out inside our forms. The plastic shoes help keep the reinforcement mesh at the correct depth and keep it stable throughout the concrete pouring process. Here we're using trench mesh, which comes in a configuration designed for a foundation like this. After our reinforcement steel's in the right position, we click in the plastic shoes about every metre to give it a stable platform for the concrete pour. We work our way around the entire perimeter of the foundation, installing the trench mesh over the plastic shoes and taking care not to puncture our damp course underlay.
Hey darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city light. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, won't see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city. Let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair.
The final step before we pour concrete is to cut and install wood braces that will help hold the timber formwork completely parallel as we pour the concrete in it. I'm installing them every 2 meters around the entire perimeter of our foundation. My plan is to pour the entire concrete footing in one day. By starting the pour at the far end of the foundation and working around both sides at once, we can get all the concrete into our formwork without any of the concrete setting up before we're complete. This is an essential part of creating a strong foundation, and in the concrete business it's called creating a wet pour. With only 2 of us doing this, I've delegated Chris to focus on mixing the concrete and dumping it, while I focus on pushing the concrete into the formwork and in and around the reinforcement steel. The wet concrete dries and stiffens quite quickly, so it needs to be constantly agitated with a shovel and trowel to ensure we don't end up with any air bubbles or voids that are trapped in the concrete and weaken our structure when the concrete sets.
said, let me tell you everything I've seen, the friends I've made, and then you tell me how you've been. Look a little closer, it's been quite some time. You gotta let me know if I'm out of line.
Here you can see Chris mixing the ingredients of our concrete. For this pour I'm using 6 parts of our sand gravel mix to 1 part Portland cement. The Portland cement is what binds all the sand and gravel together to create the concrete. Part of getting an effective concrete mix with a small mixer like this is to give the ingredients time to mix together. You'll notice how Chris pauses in between adding some of the ingredients to let the concrete blend. When the sand, gravel and Portland cement are thoroughly mixed together, we dump it out into the wheelbarrow, he brings it over and we continue the process of filling our formwork.
Underwater, so far out at sea, there's no cure for what you're telling me, and soon I'm on my way. Yes, I'm on my way.
Another technique for removing air from the concrete is tapping the side of the forms with a hammer. Air gets trapped on the edges of the concrete up against the forms and the plastic. So by constantly, periodically tapping the form, it removes all the air bubbles and ensures a really strong foundation. Here I'm moving the timbers we've been using as a system to stop the concrete spilling over the edges of our formwork as we dump it in from the wheelbarrow. As a segment of our formwork becomes filled with concrete, I move the timbers to a new position. This is an indicator for Chris where to dump the next load of concrete. As each segment of our formwork is filled, I start the final troweling process to create a smooth surface on the top of our foundation.
A bit naive and so eager to please. You know I played for love, but it got me on my knees. Now's the time to reap what I've sown. Your words echoing in every single bone.
As part of the engineering design for our foundation, we're adding 2 pieces of 14mm rebar on top of the trench mesh. By having a double layer of reinforcement steel inside the concrete, it adds a significant amount of strength and will avoid any cracking or subsidence over the life of the foundation. I place the 14mm rebar lengths on temporary wooden blocks. As we fill out the formwork with concrete, we'll be removing these blocks as we go, which will leave the steel suspended at the correct height inside our foundation.
I'm on my way. Yes, I'm on my way.
The drawbridge section of our ramp we've been using to ferry the concrete over our foundation all day, so Chris can dump concrete for this final section of formwork. After adding enough concrete to fill it over the top of the trench mesh, we add our final pieces of 14mm rebar for the extra reinforcement. We then continue to fill out the formwork until it reaches the top, and then start the troweling process to finish it off. I work my way around the entire perimeter of the foundation, making sure the concrete's sitting flush with the top of our formwork. This completes the concrete pour of our footing. We let it set up overnight before continuing the next step. The next morning we start deconstructing the formwork in preparation for the slab that we'll be pouring later. We start this process by unscrewing the bracing blocks we added to keep our formwork parallel whilst we poured the concrete. We're collecting all the screws in a yellow tub as I try and recycle as many materials as possible in my projects. I do a quick inspection to check the quality of the concrete pour before removing the forms from the inside of our footing. The outside forms are going to remain in place until we complete the concrete for the floor slab. Because the inside forms are made out of multiple bits of timber, they deconstruct and come away easily. The delivery truck makes good use of the gravel driveway we constructed to deliver our next batch of concrete mix for our slab we'll be pouring tomorrow.
Bad news is we're getting rained off today, but the good news is it didn't rain like this yesterday when we poured this footing. So everything's looking good so far.
The rain passed over a few hours later, so I returned to removing the formwork. Here you can see how having a 30-degree cut where the timbers join helps them come apart and stops them jamming. I stack all the materials off to the side so I can reuse them later in the timber framing.
Cutting grass and chopping wood can be romantic. Sipping coffee under the apple tree is gentle manly. Well, you're a good man, quite the best man.
I tape the damp course to the top of our footing to keep the damp course out of the way of the gravel we'll be adding later.
When the wind blows and the windows are closing, you let the world know that what has been has been. And there's no use in looking back, going back, wishing back.
I'm installing a drainage system that'll be sitting inside the gravel that's under the floor slab of our structure. This is to ensure that any water that infiltrates our footing has a way of draining and keeping the gravel dry, which will avoid any kind of rising damp in the future. I get a measurement for the 90mm slotted PVC pipe we'll be using for constructing this drain and cut it on my chop saw. The plan is to create a square loop around the inside of our footing, connected to the PVC pipe that I put in place before we poured our concrete. The pipes need to be placed on a slight downhill angle to keep the water draining out of the system. I dry fit all the pieces of pipe in place to check for fit and then return to glue them together.
You master how to simplify. You turn rain into a blue sky. Oh, when the wind blows and the windows are closing, you let the world know that what has been, and there's no use in looking back, going back, wishing back.
After a light sanding, I apply the glue to the connecting surfaces and push the parts together. It's important to have the pipes set at all the right angles in the dry fit process. The glue sets up really quickly and it's hard to bend the pipe once it's set in place.
Cutting grass and chopping wood can be romantic. Sipping coffee under the apple tree is gentle manly. Well, you're a good man, quite the best man, a real fine man.
With the drainage system complete and in place, I set up the ramp that we used when we did the concreting. Part of my building process often involves the construction of temporary structures to aid me with my materials and tools. I often have to construct scaffolding, temporary staircases, and in this case a ramp system so we can efficiently and effectively move all the gravel we need to into this foundation. I start by adding gravel on and around the pipe to help hold it in position. I don't want to move the pipe out of alignment whilst we fill this void with gravel. We're using a 30mm aggregate gravel, which will be effective for the drainage part of the system and also compact quickly and easily for the slab that we'll be pouring later. After adding most of the gravel in and around the pipe, I do one last check with my spirit level to make sure I haven't moved the drainage system out of alignment during the process. The next day, Chris gives me a hand with filling the bulk of the gravel inside our foundation.
Oh, I will open up my eyes so I can see the light. Oh, and I'll try to spread my wings so I can fly. Oh, and the darkness starts to fade. Feels like things are gonna go my way. I'm gonna let the sun shine in the day.
As the gravel gets close to the top of our drainage pipe, I construct a screed so we can level out the gravel exactly 75 mil below our footing. This is to allow space for the waffle board insulation we'll be putting in later. I've attached a 75mm thick piece of timber under a dead straight 2x4. This gives me an accurate indication of what level to rake the gravel out to.
Oh, I will open up my eyes so I can see the light. Oh, and I'll try to spread my wings so I can fly. Oh, and the darkness starts to fade. Feels like things are gonna go my way. I'm gonna let the sun shine in the day.
Due to the fact we'll be constructing this studio over the winter months, I need to build a temporary shelter so we can carry out our construction when it's raining. We're building a simple shed with timber-framed walls and a corrugated iron roof. It'll only partially cover our building platform, but have tarpaulins we can extend out to create shelter from the rain, especially for the next part of our process, which will be pouring the concrete floor slab. We're constructing prefabricated walls with a minimum of framing to save on materials and create easier access for moving in and out of the shelter during the construction process. One of the key parts of this structure is the diagonal piece we're fitting into the wall. This will keep the walls square and sturdy and help hold up the corrugated iron roof we'll be adding later. Our rain shelter is going to be set on planks so we can move it along the building platform as needed. The planks we'll be installing happen to be lying right where I want to put a drainage system to help keep the backyard from flooding. So we're going to pause our shed construction and install the drainage system. I'm using rigid slotted PVC ag pipe and aligning it along the entire length of the footing to help redirect any water that builds up in the backyard. I cut it to size, glue the parts together and bury it in preparation for the plank we'll be installing for our temporary rain shelter.
Your eyelids and perfect lips got me rushing, panting. I'm so lit, like lilies you open. The fragrance goes to my head, my darling. I get everything that has been. Don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
With the drainage system buried, we return to constructing our rain shelter, starting with the planking that'll be the foundation for the walls and allow us to move the rain shelter as needed later in the process.
Now everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it. Everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it. Come closer, dance for me. Easy, tiger, easy, let your hair down. Come closer, let me see all your million faces and all your million mistakes. You don't need to hide. Come closer so that we can be together.
next episode as we complete the concrete foundation that'll be the floor for our studio.
Could you hike back to it, fight with it, sit with it?